Coming to you live from Columbus, Ohio. It's Motown Downtown.
Motown Downtown.
Today's guest, HMK.
Come on down to Motown Downtown.
My name is Tyson Bruno, and here's your host, Mo Chocolate.
Come on down to Motown Downtown.
Hello everybody! How's it going? My name is Mo Chocolate and welcome to another episode of Motown Downtown. We are here to make sure that you have a wonderful time and the greatest time. Before we begin with the show, I want to make it clear to everybody watching right now that this episode is going to be the season finale of Motown Downtown. We've been on the show for about 3 months now, going on many months. Massive support from everybody out there. Thank you all so very much. Thank you. And we're going to take a 3-month hiatus from the show, and we will be back this February 2022. So we will see you there. Okay. This is a very special guest here, ladies and gentlemen. Trust me when I say we saved the absolute very best for last. Drum roll, please. He is one of the hypest content creators on the internet. You've seen him on YouTube. You've seen him on Twitch. He is the founding member of the Key Keepers and the leader of the hypest stream team on Twitch, the Fifth Dimension. And he was nice enough to bring that hype here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen of the internet, put your hands together for the one, the only HMK!
Hello.
What is up? What is up? How's it going, man? Thank you so very much for coming here, buddy. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. How's everyone doing? I'm happy to be on the show. I'm really excited. Yo, let's get this show on the road.
Before we get started, can we get one let's go, please?
Oh, for me?
Yes, please.
Oh, for me? All right. Oh, wait. Let's go!
You screamed so loud, your mic actually cut out.
Oh, did it? Oh,
yeah,
rip, sorry.
that's how the hype, the mic cannot handle that level of hype. So yes, for anyone out there who does not know who you are, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience.
All right, no problem. So, if you guys don't know who I am HMK. I run a Twitch team that Mo Chocolate is also a part of.
Hey.
That is called the Fifth Dimension, in which we are bound together by hope, hype, and all things that are good and positive in the universe and whatnot. I do a lot of hype content. I do a lot of reactions, theories, speculation, and more. Basically, any type of content that is designed to get you excited and to make you think at the same time. I specialize in The Legend of Zelda, Kingdom Hearts, Super Smash Bros., and multiple facets within that of Nintendo and Square Enix. And yeah, that's me.
Nice. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, the first question I have for you is, what was your very first console and the very first game you played?
Oh, the very first game I've ever... Ooh, that's a good one, but I know what the answer is. You know, the first game I've ever played, ever, was Duck Hunt. For the NES with the Zap Gun controller and whatnot. And I guess that really, spoiled my love of all things Nintendo, going into The Legend of Zelda, Super Mario Brothers, Metroid, and whatnot. But the first ever game I've ever played was Duck Hunt.
Nice.
That was my first game.
And tell us your very first experience playing The Legend of Zelda, or just your introduction to Zelda, and what made you fall in love with it.
Okay, so, my first introduction to Zelda was actually not the first Legend of Zelda. I went back to play that first one. The first Zelda game I ever played was A Link to the Past. And that was when my cousin, who is a huge gamer, I owe all my love for video games to my cousin. who's like had all the neat toys and whatnot, like stuff. So we would go visit, my aunt. My cousin would be there, who was like, a couple of years older than me, not too much. So that's why we were able to like, hang out and be in each other's world. Because I feel like once there's like 5 or 6 years between that of ages within family, then you're like, oh, I don't want to mess around with that little kid or whatever. I digress. So he had A Link to the Past. I played that game there with him, and it was amazing. And then after that, I went back to the Legend of Zelda. This is all when I was like still like barely walking, by the way. And then once Ocarina of Time came out, that was a wrap. It was over. And like I felt that's really like once Ocarina of Time came out, that really solidified why Zelda was my favorite video game series of all time at the time. And that was Zelda number 5. So I was there when Zelda was like fledgling. Right now we're about to get Breath of the Wild 2 about. That's Zelda 20.
Yes.
So like I've been there with the waves like throughout, and it was such a grand experience. And when it came to the Legend of Zelda, that's like I first played A Link to the Past, went back to Zelda 1 and Zelda 2, and then I played Link's Awakening when it came out afterwards. And then Ocarina of Time came out. I'm like, this is it. This is the best game ever. And people were like, oh, but nostalgia. And I'm like, no. Everyone thought it was the best game ever back then, and everyone thinks it's the best game ever up until now. Ocarina of Time, like, not only was it an amazing game, but it literally gave so much to video gaming as a whole. So you put some respect on that.
Yes. Of course. Fully agree with you. Yeah, that was actually my first Zelda game ever, and I loved it. Now, okay, let's talk about Kingdom Hearts. How did you get involved with Kingdom Hearts? Like your first experience with Kingdom Hearts, and what made you fall in love with Kingdom Hearts?
Oh, this is a very funny story that I owe another person for getting my love to Kingdom Hearts. So, a little context is that before Kingdom Hearts, I played a lot of Final Fantasy. I love Disney. Like, I'm a huge Disney nut. I love watching their movies. I had all those movies on VHS that came out at the time. Yo, Beauty and the Beast was my jam. Little Mermaid, all of that.
Preach.
So I was already like very well versed in Disney and Final Fantasy, both of them. So when my best friend told me about it, like, hey man, there's this game called Kingdom Hearts, because I had a GameCube and he had a PlayStation 2. It's like, there's this game called Kingdom Hearts, and I'm like, what is it, right? And it's like, it's Disney with Final Fantasy. And when he told me that, I'm like, that sounds so stupid, right? So he's like, nah, man, it's so cool. I'm like, because I knew what they both were. I'm like, Disney, Final Fantasy, like,
what?
Together? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, bro, like, what? How can that mix? I went over his house. I played the game. And the rest is history. It was such a wrap. And I'm like, to my mind, I'm like, how's this going to work? This is never going to work. This is probably going to be the dumb. I'm like, and I played it. I'm like, bro, this game is magical. Oh, dude. And then I was so enamored with Kingdom Hearts going forward on that. Like, I got PS2 after that. When Kingdom Hearts 2 was releasing, I bought myself and him a copy on release. You know, I was like, yo, you got me into Kingdom Hearts. We go together. So
nice.
And then the funniest story about that is that leading up all the way to the Kingdom Hearts 3 premiere that happened in 2018 when Square Enix and Disney invited me to that, I was able to negotiate with them. It's like, hey, listen, can I bring another person in order to, like, you know, assist me in recording and all that stuff? And they're like, yeah, originally I was going to bring my fiance, but then she couldn't make it. And I'm like, okay, the person I'm going to bring, I end up bringing my best friend, the dude who got me into Kingdom Hearts 3. I brought him to the Kingdom Hearts 3 premiere to play the game alongside me before anyone else. And I was like, bro, like, and I like, that's a full circle thing in my life. The dude who got me into Kingdom Hearts, I was able to bring him to the Kingdom Hearts.
That is so awesome, man. That's so awesome. That's an amazing story. So thank you to your cousin. Shout out to your cousin for getting this man into Kingdom Hearts. Thank you for that. So
it was my cousin that got me into Zelda. My best friend got me into Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah. So my next question is so were you like this hype man that you are, even going back to like your high school days and stuff? Like, how was it? How were you this energetic back in those days, the pre-HMK days?
All right, the pre-HMK days. So, yeah, I was always an energetic kid. Like, I had a pretty happy upbringing and whatnot. I was always full of energy to the point where I'm like, people are like, yo, sometimes this kid is like annoyingly energetic. And, that was always me. However, when it came to high school, we all know, like, high school stuff, like, either if you're still in high school or have been to high school, it's like, like for a lot of people, it's like Lord of the Flies. You got the cliques here, you got the cool kids, you got the, the football team, you got the goth trope and whatever and stuff like that. So, like, being thrust into the whole high school scene coming out of middle school, because the way schooling is structured in the United States is stupid. Right, it's like you're gonna have like grades 1 through 5 grade school. That's like little kid life, right? And then you have this weird threshold between that of high school and elementary school, where depending on what middle school you go to, you can get a good grasp of how to socialize with kids your age into the time of coming of age, right? And sometimes you can pick up on that in middle school, and sometimes you don't. I went to a middle school in the case that I didn't, right? So for me in high school, like I was like the weird kid. I was always like, there's cool kids there, and then there's me, and then my friends growing up, going into high school and stuff, and I would hang out with them, but then they would have their own little cliques of their own and stuff like that. But then eventually I found out, I found out who were the gamers, who were the people who were into video games, who were the people who were into Super Smash Bros. And I started rolling with them. And then, that made things a lot easier. But it was like, I was always like this, but rephrase. I was always energetic. But when it came to being an open book, that was a work in progress.
Gotcha.
Going through high school and whatnot. But by the end of high school, it was pretty solidified.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
So tell us about your life before content creation. Like what job you had, what you did for a living, did you go to college, all that stuff.
Jesus, you're really trying to get into my, like, yo, you want my social security number next? Like, my lord. All right, so, yeah, I went to, like, a lot of people, like, get misconstrued. They constantly write narratives into their head and whatnot about, like, my life or whatever. I went to college, yes, and I did work, and I had a bunch of, like, jobs, odd jobs, and jobs into content creation, but I always had content creation on the side. When I started doing content creation to the point where I'm like, okay, I want this to try and become something, because I always, what is that? I always say, no, it's not a fly. It was like I think it was like a cobweb or something. So, I always tell people, always start content creation as a hobby, because you don't know, like, literally it's a coin flip. There's nothing is guaranteed in this line of work and whatnot. And the people that admit that, I got the most respect for and stuff, because it's true. So I always did content creation on the side for like the early fledgling years of HMK. But during that, I was in college. I was doing various jobs and stuff. One of my most notable jobs that really pushed me to like pursue content creation a little bit more was when I worked at Blockbuster. And bro, that was one of the best jobs I ever had.
Nice.
And it's sad because I went down with the ship, so like when Blockbuster folded, that's when I lost my job. Not a second beforehand, which is sad. But a lot of time I was put in charge of the action section, the horror section, and the video game section. And a lot of the times people would ask me of what I could recommend, and when I would give them recommendations, they will always keep coming back to me. So I'm like, oh wow, and they're like, yo, you can do that for a living, and I'm like, do what? Like, I'm right here working at Blockbuster. It's like, no, like recommendations and stuff like that. How people like work in magazines or their newspapers or on the internet and stuff. I'm like, yeah, maybe I can. And then at the time I was watching a lot of Angry Joe, so that's like, that really like pushed me to pursue content creation a little bit more. And then between Blockbuster, I did a bunch of other jobs working. I worked at a pharmacy at one point, and then I worked at Best Buy, and then my most recent job, when I'm like, okay, YouTube and Twitch can pay my bills. Before that, I used to work for LG. So what I would do is that LG would dispatch me to various stores and marketplaces in order to teach their employees how to sell LG products and
Nice.
stuff. So that's what I did before before I started doing content creation full time. So that's the spiel.
Awesome. And so, what would you say was the spark to like really start doing YouTube full time, or just start doing it in general? Was there something that really hit you, like when you discovered, like, wow, I can do this?
Oh no, yeah, definitely Angry Joe. That's it. Like that's the answer. Angry Joe.
Okay, nice.
So I was watching. I still watch a lot of Angry Joe, like to this day and whatnot. And he inspired me a lot. You know, being another content creator, Latino content creator and stuff. And like I saw a lot of his work. And then of course the thing that all stuff that was happening with Blockbuster and whatnot. And then like I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, yo, if he could do it, why can't I? And
Sure.
I went for it. And I did it, and then I actually ended up. The rest is history, and I actually ended up meeting Angry Joe at a Twitch party and stuff, and it was super surreal because I'm like, yo, and I told him, I'm like, yo, man, like, I'm here at this Twitch party. That means that means I'm a Twitch partner. I earned myself here, and he was kind of confused because he saw my jacket because I still have it, by the way, my huge all my pin jacket, and he looks at it, he's like, dude, you got so many pins. And I'm like, but it was from the side, right? And I turned, and I'm like, thanks, man. And then it was Angry Joe. I'm like, yo, Angry Joe. And he's like, yeah, that's me. So then I was telling him, I'm like, hey, listen, I'm here. I earned my way to Twitch party. And he's like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, that's right. You inspired me to do content creation. So it's because of you that I'm here. And then he's like, oh, that's so cool. And then we took a lot of pictures. We ended up talking for like an hour and whatnot. And he actually gave me an Angry Joe pin, which I put. I'm like, oh man, I gotta put this on the jacket. So like the jacket's in the closet, but there's an Angry Joe pin in there.
That's cool.
So like that was the full circle thing.
Shout out to Angry Joe for that awesome pin. So then you start doing YouTube under the name HMK. And I gotta ask, man, what exactly, I know you get this all the time, but what does HMK stand for? I'm curious.
Bro, like HMK doesn't like it's just letters. It doesn't stand for anything. It's just just HMK.
I mean, I'm just saying, man, like to have those three letters that just sound so perfect together. I feel like there's more to the story than that. Like, just can you do me this one solid and just tell us and the audience like what exactly that means, please?
I've been keeping this under wraps for the longest.
Oh,
but I just might like but it was like the I'll tell you then. Fine.
You'll tell me. You'll
Yeah.
tell me. Go. Bro, are you messing with me right now? You're not. You're being for real. You're actually going to display for the whole internet what HMK stands for. Are you right? Yes.
I mean, I feel it's time.
This is a Motown Downtown exclusive. You're about to find out what HMK stands for. Okay. HMK. Okay. Please, what we've been wanting to know for years, what does HMK stand for?
HMK stands for
Ballin'. On a budget? Try the new $1 Your Way menu at Burger King, featuring a flame-grilled bacon cheeseburger. Value this good is hard to find anywhere else. The new $1 Your Way menu, now at Burger King. Your way, way better.
Really? That's what it stands for?
I mean, yeah, like that's like when it came to those individual words, just like put together at that point in time in my life, just really stuck with me. So that's what HMK stands for.
That is thank you, man. Thank you. That is so cool. Like I never would have thought that's what man. Wow. Okay. Well, my mind is legit. I need a second. Just wow. That is wow. Okay. Well, thank you again for that. So the next question is, what is the story behind your look? It's like I love your mohawk and everything. Like, well, is there a story behind that, or is that just what you like to go as?
No, there's not really a story behind that. It's just that a lot of people know that when I was younger, I actually had long hair, like really, really long hair and stuff. But I was I always grew up with rock music, punk music, metal music. That's like my favorite genres of music and whatnot. And I had really long hair. I was doing the long hair metal look for the longest stuff, but it was way too much to maintain and stuff, to be washing every day. It was getting really heavy and whatnot. So I at one point out of high school going into college, I'm like, let me just like and at first I was doing like a bit of a short hair look, but then I'm like, let me take it a step further and then shade the sides, did the whole mohawk thing because my barber was telling I had really good hair for it, And I was already dyeing my hair at that point, even when I had the long hair. But then, my favorite color is red, so I dye my hair red most of the time. But I do dye different colors and whatnot. Sometimes I do dye blue, green, and whatnot. My barber doesn't like it when I do. I think it's green. It's what, green or blue. It's one of those colors. And my brother hates it. He's like, oh, it's like, darling, that color doesn't look good on your skin. It's like, it's funny. I keep forgetting because every time I do it, he's like, no, you gotta do that one. Because, he hates either green or blue, but then likes the other one. So when it comes to those two colors specifically, it's like, no green, yes blue, because, how it looks on my... I think he doesn't like how green looks on me because it says it doesn't match my skin tone. But then he really likes how blue looks on me because it really complements my skin tone. But most of the time, I just do red anyways. But I've dyed my hair, almost every color but brown. Because, brown is a natural hair color.
Mm-hmm.
So, why am I going to go through the trouble of bleaching it and then just put brown dye in it? And when I'm like, come on. If I'm going to bleach it, I'd rather do blonde than brown hair.
Nice.
And stuff. And my hair is naturally black to begin with. So, yeah. And then, I guess, the combination of both, metal, rock, punk, the aesthetic, all stuff, the combination of that and then growing up playing Kingdom Hearts, I guess, kind of dictated my style, over the years subconsciously and whatnot. But there's not really much to it when it comes to the lore of my look. It's just that's how I like to dress.
You really stand out, and that's really good. You stand out. I won't sing now. But so tell us your equipment back in your early days of YouTube. This is 2009 or something?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
what do you use to record
man.
your editing software, your camera, all that jazz back in 2009? What you use?
Okay, so around that time, it was 2009 to 12, 13 and whatnot. Boy, all right. So there was I would use the family computer, and then at the same time I would use the family computer as well as my brother's hand-me-down laptop that I bought off him. And that laptop, bro, that was the little engine that could, right? And by no means those were good pieces of equipment, but that's what I had. And that's what you sometimes when you start this content creation game, you really have to go off on what you've got, right? So then that's what I use, and especially since when it came to recording myself, I would have to use the cameras that are built into the laptop and a webcam that was used in the family computer. And that moving off of that, when it came to the microphone business, I didn't have an actual mic in the beginning. What I would use to record my voice is one of those recorder things that you would take to seminars or classes that you put on the table and record the conversation for you. That's how I recorded my voice for the videos. I would record from there and then plug it into the computer and then export the track and stuff, and that's what I used. Because I didn't have anything else. And then when I started having more disposable income to invest in other things, that I invested in a mic, I invested in a webcam, I invested in a mic, a webcam, a capture card. But then I was able to finally invest in an actual computer, not just a hand-me-down laptop or the family computer. I was actually able to invest in a computer that one of my best friends was able to put together because he really likes building computers. When I got a job from Polaris, in which they needed me to assist in capturing footage for a series they were doing. And I'm gonna let you guys try to figure that out. I'm not gonna say what it is, but I had to assist in capturing footage for that, and they paid me pretty handsomely, to the point where they gave me a good chunk of change, and then I'm like, oh, this is enough to buy another, buy the parts to build a computer. And then my contact at the time hit me up. It's like, hey, listen, they really like what you did. They want you to do it again, and we'll pay you again the same amount we just paid you. I'm like,
Nice.
double? And then they're like, yeah. So then I did it, and then I had a good chunk of money, and then that's how I was able to buy, 2 monitors, an actual webcam, a mic stand, a table,
Nice.
and then all the parts that went into the computer and stuff. And that was HMK Gen 1 computer. Like that computer then doesn't even hold a candle to the computer I've got now. Like this thing that I'm running right now is like it's pretty beefy. And it's funny because it's technically not even complete because I have this 6 terabyte hard drive that was faulty when I first ordered it, so they sent me a replacement. And then since they sent me the replacement, it's been sitting there and I haven't jacked it in yet. And I'm like, I should really put that on my computer. My computer is like behind all this stuff, like in the corner. I'm like, but I have to unplug everything, and I don't want to. Like, I really should do that. I'm running low on memory,
6
but
terabytes. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So what was your very first, your first big video on YouTube that really blew up for the first time?
Oh, easily. I will never forget. That was back in the day on YouTube, where if you had a video that had the most views when it came to a certain name of the video, YouTube would tag it as official, right? But they don't do that anymore because the concept is really stupid to think about it. But the one video that really blew up, and I'm like, yo, I can do this. And if any of the real OGs are in the chat, it was my top 10 Kingdom Hearts characters. That video blew up, and I'm like, all right, we're doing it. And that video's old. I think that video is like from 2012 and whatnot. And bro, that's for the longest, that video was tagged as official, like the official top 10 Kingdom Hearts character video. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And then like looking back at it now, I'm like, damn, that's kind of cringy. Like that, because it wasn't official. Because I was just like a dude who made a video. I'm like, what the fuck? But yeah.
Nice. So tell us about how you met your bestie Skyward Wing, or as you like to call him, bitch on Twitter. How did you guys meet?
Whoa! Don't put words in my mouth. Don't put words in my mouth. I mean, like that's besides me. Like Sky is a bitch, but that's besides me. Like, I love you. So, man, that story, right? How I met the Skyward Wing. So Skyward Wing is actually my first ever like YouTube friend ever, right? And we still talk. And then there are times where he literally just, he like literally we're so close. He comes to my house. He just like, yo, it's like, yo, you busy that weekend? It's like, yo, you flying down? It's like, yeah, all right. I got the couch ready for you. Like, he's been to my house. He's been here multiple times. So, the way it started was that, at the time, Kingdom Hearts content was really, like, blowing up to the point where, like, there was a bunch of Kingdom Hearts content creators. And, at the time, like, we were all get those messages and stuff. Back when YouTube was doing, inbox system, bro, that thing was so garbage. And a bunch of comments were being made. It's like, hey, you should really work with Skyward Wing. He does Kingdom Hearts content too. And then Sky was also getting those messages. It's like, hey, have you ever heard of HMK? He does Kingdom Hearts content too. And this is like the dawn of time. This was like the dawn of Kingdom Hearts content. It was like way back in the day. So I messaged him on YouTube, on garbage ass YouTube Messenger.
I remember those.
I messaged him. And I'm like, hey, listen, like, a lot of my viewers have been telling me, like, you do Kingdom Hearts content, I do Kingdom Hearts content and stuff like that. A lot of people like to see us collab and whatnot. So, I mean, if you're down, like, we could exchange. Oh, here we go. You guys ready for this? If you're down, we could exchange Skype numbers and connect. And I'm like, bro, that's back when we had to use Skype. That's yikes. So. We got in touch and we exchanged information, and then when we started like talking and do recording on his behalf, my behalf, and stuff like that, we really just hit it off. We just had whatchamacallit,
bromance.
What's the word? Not yet. Like it was getting there. Jeez, like. Bro, buy me dinner first. Damn. Like, so it was like we had a very compatible. There we go. We had very compatible personalities, right? So like it didn't take long for us to get comfortable with each other in the ways how we address each other, how we talk, and blah 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 stuff. So like after that, after the first collab, we would stay in touch and we would just talk and stuff. And the rest would become history, that would eventually lead to the formation of the Keykeepers. And that's how I first met Sky. And then, like, ever since then, me and Sky, we go on trips all together all the time. We go to, like, PAX. We've been to E3. We went to D23 together. We went to the Kingdom Hearts Orchestra. He's been to my house. We literally went to Japan together. Like, that was, like, we didn't meet up. Like, okay, technically we met up in Japan, but we went to Japan together. We didn't, like, oh, he's going to Japan, I'm going to Japan. We stayed in different, like, no, he was part of our group when we went to Japan, because me and my fiance went to Japan the year prior, and then we were like, okay, let's do a trip, right? So it was me, my fiance, 3 of our friends, and then I like, yo, Sky, you want in on this? Like, yeah. And then, like, we went to Japan, and then we were supposed to go to Japan again the year after that, and then, yeah. But
Gotcha.
that's how I met Sky.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the Keykeepers, because that is actually my next question. Let's talk about the Keykeepers, shall we? Yes, it is. I want to know, like, how did that become a thing? Like, whose idea was it? How did you decide who gets in, all that jazz? Please let us know.
All right, so I'm gonna. All right. To talk about the story of the Keykeepers, obviously, I have to bring up some stuff, which is like, it's not like it's buried or anything like that, but it's just like, oh, remember that type things. So I'm gonna be, very particular on how I explain the story again.
Okay.
So, the Keykeepers, like, a lot of people, like, try to get it twisted and whatnot and stuff, but, like, don't get it twisted, like, Dean and Jared and Sky. Like, I do that a lot in my head where I just combine words randomly. So Dean, Jared, and Sky would tell you, like, never get it twisted. The Keykeepers was my idea, right? But a lot of times they make the jokes saying that, you're the leader of the Keykeepers, or you're the dad of the Keykeepers, or like the front man of the Keykeepers. I'm like, no, stop, no, that was never the goal when I wanted to put this group together, right? And like, every time it's like, oh yeah, you're the leader of the Keykeepers. I'm like, I kind of cringe when I hear that. I'm like, no, man, there's no leader. There was never any leader. Like, that was the whole point. So the story runs like this. I really want to put together a group of Kingdom Hearts content creators, because at the time, the Kingdom Hearts content was really blowing up around the time of the reveal of Kingdom Hearts 3 and whatnot, and it was like, it was something that was in the space all the time. You could see Kingdom Hearts content being made here, there, everywhere, and whatnot. And I really wanted to put together a group that will help bring that to the next level and bring the community watching that content to the next level. So then I really want, like, like, at that point, I already told Sky, I'm like, okay, like, I want you in. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm so down. But then, like, how many members do you want at the time? And I'm like, I want, like, I was saying, I want an amount of members, because, like, 7 Guardians of Light. I'm like, no, that's way too much. I was like, I want an amount of members that will lead to a majority vote if needed, right? So I want, that's how I originally envisioned it, to be an odd number.
Smart.
Right? But then, like, later on in the story, you'll see, like, that was never needed. So, at the time, I was, like, talking with Dean, like, a little bit, like, here and there or whatnot. So, I was like, okay, Sky, I want you in. I'll be in as well. And then also I want Dean in as well. Dean, and he's like, Sora Alarm 1. And then that was at the time, like, if Dean ever comes back in the season, that was around the time where he was known as Sora Alarm 1 Gaming. And then, like, he's like, bro, I can't believe, every time he tells me the story about that, he's like, I can't believe I actually put gaming in the word. It rolls off the tongue better when he dropped the gaming. But I was talking with Dean at the time, so I'm like, I want Dean in, and I hit up Dean. I'm like, hey Dean, I'm putting together a group of Kingdom Hearts content creators, and at the time we didn't even have a name, so I want a group, but we didn't figure out the name at the time. So I'm like, okay, Dean, I want Dean in, and then Dean's like, yeah, I'm down, so down, that sounds so cool, right? And when I was talking about that at the time, that's also when I was talking with Volt Edits, Tyler, right? And then Tyler got wind of that, and he was like, "Oh, I really want in on this group. I really, really want in on this group." So like, contrary to popular belief, Tyler actually made it to the group before Jared. Jared was actually the last person to make it into the group. And I'm like, at the time, I'm like, okay, Tyler seems cool and stuff. And like, okay, Volt, let's get you into the group. At the time when like he heard about it, it was like cat's out of the bag. I'm not gonna tell him no, because at the time we were working together as well. And then eventually stuff happened. But at this point in time, it's all water under the bridge. We all 5 of us actually reconvened at the Kingdom Hearts premiere, so that was like really cool. It's like, oh, all 5 original Keykeepers reunited again.
Nice.
And stuff. So then Tyler was in. So then at the time there was 4 members, and I'm like, okay, we have 4 members, but I mean, like, I need that odd number thing, right? So then around the time that happening, Jared was shooting up in popularity. And then in my comments, a lot of people was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of the Gamers Joint? Like, yo, they got some really cool Kingdom Hearts content." I'm like, "Gamers Joint, like maybe he will be a cool 5th member." And I'm like, "All right, cool." So then the funniest story about that is that here's me logging into YouTube, going into my message inbox to search up the Gamers Joint's name in order to send him a message. I go to my inbox. The Gamers Joint is already in my inbox. It's like, "Hey, I would love to work with you." And I'm like,
nice.
And I messaged like, "Bro, do I have a story for you?" Like, and so like, "Hey, listen, I was actually like reading this message. I was actually on my way to message you to ask if you want to be part of a Kingdom Hearts group that I'm putting together." And then he's like, "Dude, what?" Like, yeah. And I'm like, so we all got into a call. And we all got to know each other a little bit there, and then that was the 5 of us. And they're like, "Okay, the 5 of us, that's us. This is the Kingdom Hearts group." And that the reason that there's 5 of us is that just in case if we need to make a decision on behalf of the group, we can take a majority vote if there is conflicting sides. And and the one thing, like the one HMK stamp rule that I made from the beginning, I'm like, to let you guys know, like the majority vote thing also dictates that there is no leader of this group. There's like no frontman, no leader, no person to make an executive decision, none of that. All decisions made is either unanimously or by majority vote, and that's why we have 5 members. And then, funny enough, on a car, like, okay, so then we had our members, and then we're like, oh, we gotta think of a name, and then, bro, like, I already said, I'm like, I don't want no dumbass names and whatnot. So then as soon as I said that, they were like, "Damn, what are we going to name ourselves?" It's like, like, because we were saying, like, we're not going to name ourselves things like the Warriors of the Heart or the Keybladers of Destiny or some shit, right? So then on a car ride home, I'm just pondering this question. I'm like, and then I was like, oh, and then as I'm thinking of the name, I'm like, oh, damn, yo, where did I keep my keys? And then I'm like, Key Keepers. Key Keepers. And then I start playing, I'm like, okay, it has a nice ring to it, but like it's a bit long, and I'm like, but what if we style it as X Keeper? And I'm like, bro. And then I'm like, so I get my phone, I message Sky, I'm like, dude, X Keepers, but it's pronounced Key Keepers. And then and then he's like, dude, that's so cool. And I'm like, that's it, that's the name.
That is
right?
That is amazing.
And then we told Dean, Sky, and Tyler, and then like Dean, Jerry, and Tyler, and they're like, that's so cool, yeah. Then that's it. So like stylized X Keepers, but it's Key Keepers because of what Kingdom Hearts does. With the whole Xeno, it's like Key, the most ancient letter. Some say Kai, but the meaning is the same. And I'm like, there. And then we from then on we adopted the Rikusen sigil in a lot of our promotion and stuff like that. So that's how it came to be.
That is one amazing story, man. Thank you for sharing with us with that. My next question is, what was it like when everyone got together, got to meet for the very first time? What was that experience like?
That was wild, because the first time we were actually able to schedule that all of us meeting at one point, all 5 of us, was PAX East Bro, was it 2015? I'm pretty sure it was 2015 because that was also the year I went to E3, my first ever E3, and that's my first PAX. So it was PAX East 2015, right? And that's the first time all 5 of us got together, and that was a trip mainly because all of us but Jared. Funny enough, all of us but Jared. Not only did all of us live in the United States, but we also all lived on the eastern on the eastern coast, right? So we were on that side of the United States, Eastern Standard Time, blah 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 blah. So going to PAX was not that big of a deal, especially for Dean, Tyler, and Sky, because they lived in that pocket region of the north and eastern around Boston. And I lived down, so I'm from Florida. Dean, what do you call them? Delaware, Sky, New York, and then Tyler, New Jersey. So they were all there. So it was really easy for them to get to Boston, right? But then we come to Jared, who lives in the negative zone in New Zealand. He literally lives on the other side of the world, right? So then trying to get all 5 of us here was definitely a trip, considering that how far he lived and how expensive it would be and stuff. And then that's why we had the Jared donation stream in order to raise enough money to get Jerry to come to Boston for PAX East 2015, and we made it happen. And it was so surreal. And all of us, we hit it off and whatnot. We hung out. It was it's weird because the way we were hanging out, the way we were just messing around in Boston and PAX East and stuff. It was like we were all friends for years already, and it was such a really surreal experience, and I'll never forget it. It was actually it was my first PAX East, and it's still one of my favorites. It's still one of my favorite trips I've ever done, and finally meeting up and then meeting up with other people. It was just really, really cool. It was really cool.
That's incredible. And also, I noticed that you guys haven't had a Keykeeper stream together in a while. Maybe you guys could have a reunion on Motown Downtown, maybe?
I can't answer for other people, man. Whatchamacallit, a lot of people's been asking us about, are the Keykeepers dead? And no, man, we're not dead. It's just that, we still talk. A lot of people really, get it twisted, do they still talk based on what they see online, publicly and stuff? But we still talk all the time, behind the scenes or whatnot. It's just that we're now at a point damn, this is boomer speak, but we're at the point where we all kind of grew up. I'm not saying we grew out of the Keykeepers because we definitely did, but we all grew up. We're all doing our own things and stuff. We're all we all have different things we have to keep track of. Sky is working for Game Rant now. Dean is going to the moon, working for various companies and stuff. Coming out of college and stuff. And then Jared's doing his own thing over in New Zealand. Finding ways of his life and whatnot. Still doing content and whatnot. And I'm doing all this with the Fifth Dimension and whatnot. Now I have another team to look after and whatnot. So it's we're all doing different things, and it's at the point where we're growing up, growing older and whatnot. It's not like we're growing apart. It's just that now we have all these other responsibilities that we didn't have back then. So it makes it a lot harder for us to find the right time and place to hey, let's get a stream going, guys, and stuff. But hopefully maybe we'll get some going soon enough, considering that Sora came to Smash. So, but at the same time, I can't be yeah, man, the Keykeepers are definitely coming back for Smash. I can't, because I can't speak for Sky. I can't speak for Dean. I can't speak for Jared. So we see that you guys want us to do more stuff. It's just that all of our conflicting time schedules is really in the way. Okay,
now I want to talk about Twitch. How did you come across Twitch in your YouTube days, and what made you decide to stream on a Twitch? Was it called Twitch back in those days?
Okay, so I started Twitch when it was Twitch, not when it was Justin TV, because that's when they changed the name from Justin TV to Twitch. But I've been streaming on Twitch almost as long as I've been doing YouTube. And when you're in the video game space on YouTube and stuff, of course, Twitch is gonna come up in the conversation. So then when I say like, and definitely at the time, YouTube was not doing streaming at the time when I was on YouTube. You know, so when I found out about Twitch, you know, that was at the time where Sky was also doing Twitch, Dean was also doing Twitch, Jerry was doing Twitch, and I had a lot of friends doing Twitch. So I'm like, okay, you know, just another thing to have in my pocket, another thing to tackle stuff, you know, because I do make content, but sometimes I would do like to do Twitch. And then, you know, YouTube and Twitch was a lot more cool at the time of, you know, sending people to YouTube and then sending people to Twitch and whatnot and stuff. But now it's just like, oh, if you use a hyperlink, they'll like suppress, you know, that hyperlink and stuff because they don't want person A going to site B and blah, 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 because they want to like, oh, no, stay here so we can get the most money and blah, blah, blah. That wasn't really a thing back in the day, so it was a lot more, it was a lot easier to get cross-pollination going between that of YouTube and Twitch. And then that's what I use as a springboard for me streaming on Twitch, especially since I was doing a lot of Kingdom Hearts Zelda content. I was streaming a lot of Zelda and Kingdom Hearts games. And that's how, you know, I discovered it, and I kept going at it and whatnot. And then eventually I gained partnership, and I'm like, all right, now like both Twitch and YouTube are a very, you know, good source of sustainable income for me, along with other things. And yeah, that's the story. I guess that's the story about around Twitch, because, you know, when I wanted to do YouTube, I was like, okay, YouTube is YouTube. But then Twitch was like, Twitch always kind of began as an afterthought. So there was really no grand story behind it. It's just like, oh, Twitch is there, I might as well do that too. And I did it, and now look, now I'm partner and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, how was it like nowadays? You need like the 70 concurrent viewers and all this stuff to be partnered. Was that the same back in those days to get partnered on Twitch? Like, how long did it take you to get partnered?
Oh, so the onboarding for it to get it to a partnership is pretty much like, it's not one to one the same, because now there's like, you know, the explosion of more and more partners, and then of course the affiliate program and stuff, because back in the day the affiliate program didn't exist, right? But like the concurrent viewership and of course abiding by Twitch 2OS was very much prevalent as it was then as it is now. So, you know, like, you're not gonna get partnership if you don't have a good number of concurrent partnerships and whatnot. But whatchamacallit, it was like, I don't want to say one to one the same, but it's like it's all in the same ballpark. It's in the same ballpark of what it needs to be partnered in terms of what Twitch expects of you. But in terms of, you know, specific metrics, of course, that's going to constantly fluctuate. So I couldn't tell you, you know, it's not like, oh, I'm going for partnership now, so I can't really tell you, because I applied for a partnership way back when, and, you know, I have partnership, so I'm like, I'm good. So when it came to me applying for a partnership, I actually had to apply like 4 times. And on the 3rd time, I actually had to twist their arm a little bit. I remember, because that's when YouTube started introducing YouTube Gaming, their streaming service, right? So I had to, like, you know, negotiate in my favor. Hey, listen, you know, I applied a couple of times, then my concurrent, like, and every time I've applied, my numbers have all risen, right? Now, I'm not here trying to apply to the moon and back. You know, now that YouTube is doing their thing, listen, like, you have to make a decision. And you have to make sure the decision you want to make is the one, like, you're gonna have to live with, because I'm not gonna stick around forever if we're gonna be playing this song and dance. So I got partnered, and then, you know, the rest is history.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this, HMK: you in some magical world, you are now in charge of Twitch. Okay, if you were in charge of Twitch, what would you change about Twitch and why?
All right, repeat that.
Basically, if you were in charge of Twitch, what would you change and why?
That's
I personally would make it so where the whole music thing isn't such a big issue. Me personally.
Yeah, but that's not really Twitch's fault, though. That's more outside of, you know, the DMCA, like the people doing the DMCAs and the corporations and the companies doing the DMCAs and whatnot. So it's not, it's like, it's the whole music thing is something that's really out of Twitch's hands. They're doing the best they could, but I mean, like, it's hard. So I'm trying to think, what would I change on Twitch? Honestly, if I had to choose one, I mean, there's a lot of things I would change with Twitch personally. But if there was one thing like I can think of right now off the top of my head, is I would say stop with all this really weird experimentation when it comes to certain features and whatnot that are obviously constructed in order to maximize profits from streamers for Twitch as a whole company, right? I would say stop with experimentation like that, and then actually, construct tools, assets needed in order to combat the really bad hanky-panky that goes around with Twitch, because there's a lot of things that happen on Twitch in terms of hate rating and channel suppression and banning and stuff like that really shouldn't be happening in the first place.
Yes.
So instead of focusing on ways you can make more money, focus on things that'll make your community happier so that they will stick around and then want to work better on Twitch. That would in turn make more money. So
agree, 100%.
Honestly.
So what would you say was the best and worst gaming experience you've had on Twitch besides Mario Sunshine?
Mario Sunshine is actually not that bad. It hurts playing that game, but it's like one of those fun hurts, So a bad gaming experience on Twitch. I'm trying to think of a game that I streamed. I'm like, bro, I am never doing that again. Even times when I play games I don't like when I streamed Paper Mario, Sticker Star, I'm like it was fun. Because streaming made it fun, hanging out with my chat made it fun, yeah. But then I'm trying to think of an experience where I'm like, bro, that shit sucked.
Was it Recoded?
No, I actually never streamed Recoded, and I'm never gonna stream Recoded. I'm never gonna play that game again in my life. I'm trying to think. The times I really have a bad time on Twitch is not per se the fault of the game. It usually has to deal with the fault of the stream when it comes to my either my internet failing or my streaming program bugging out or something like that that's outside of my control. And then that's not really the game's fault. It's just those are the times where I have the worst memories in my life. So I'm like, damn, I was having such a fun time on stream, and then the stream crashes or the bit rate drops or it fluctuates and stuff like that. It's just those moments. But when I stream, I haven't had a game that I've played where I'm like, damn, that was a bad stream. I don't think I've ever been spoiled. I don't think I've ever been spoiled on a game that I played for the first time on Twitch, because I'm really particular on how I handle the chat, how I handle the stream, when do I look, how do I look, and blah 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 blah. And then I also have my awesome mods to thank when it comes to them keeping a grasp on the chat. So I don't think I've ever had a really bad experience that was at fault of the game. So far, the bad experience I've ever had was things outside of my control and outside of the game's control. So yeah, I don't think I've ever had a bad one on Twitch.
So what would you say was your best gaming experience on a Twitch?
Best gaming experience on a Twitch. I have so many and stuff. I loved streaming Breath of the Wild for the first time. I loved streaming Kingdom Hearts 3 for the first time. Okay, so yeah, Zora, Kingdom Hearts, doing those Zora streams, on Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind, that was fun. It was painful, literally physically painful, but it was fun. Those are some really fond memories. Some other fond memories and stuff, when it comes to times where I'm not streaming a game, when I'm streaming the Game Awards or anything like that, when I have all my homies, when I did that 24-hour stream, that was a really cool memory of mine, because originally my brother and one of my best friends came to help, but then my fiance is like, hey, so and so are here, you want to come here and hang? And then so and other friends came, and then other friends came, and other friends came, and more friends came. I'm like, but guys, I'm doing a 24-hour stream. It's like, yeah, we're here to help and to hang. So it literally became like half stream, half hangout, where I had people like hanging out in my room, and it was really, really fun to the point where like when it came to the times when I was taking a nap, I had people like literally sleeping over my house just because like, you know, they showed up and they wanted to help, and they end up sleeping over there too. And I'm like, well, you're sleeping over here too? It's like, yes, that's fine. I'm like, oh, that's fine. But I mean, like, you know, like, it's all cool. So we also had like a massive sleepover and stuff. So that was a really fun time. And I was playing a bunch of games at the time. And then, how can I forget the Kingdom Hearts community sleepover?
Oh,
that
yes.
Really fun. When we were waiting for that trailer of, I'm pretty sure it was either TGS or Jump Festa. It was like one of those, it was an event that was happening in Japan, so that's why it was taking so long. Or was it D23 in Japan? Anyway, it was a Japan event, but it was really cool because like everybody within the Kingdom Hearts community was staying up and streaming, and we were like talking with each other and stuff, and then we stayed up to like 3 a.m. and it was like, bro, that trailer came out and I'm like, okay, now I need to go to sleep. The next day I was bugging and I'm like, I lost a lot of sleep, but it was worth it. So that was a really good memory.
That's what I missed the most about pre-Kingdom Hearts 3 release, is these late night sleepovers, everyone coming together and watching every single trailer, speculating. Like, that's one thing that I missed that I don't think we're ever going to experience, you know? When it comes to Kingdom Hearts 3, and just games we wait a long time for, and we're all just anticipating it for a long time.
So just wait for the Quadratum game or Kingdom Hearts 4.
True. So like, what was the first time you've ever gotten recognized in public?
I think it would have to be. It was like a local convention here in Florida, and that was the first time I went and appeared, like you know, I as HMK, because I am HMK. I went there, but I didn't have a panel at the time. No, I had a panel, but anyways, I was there and I was doing my spiel, because back in the day in conventions I used to go around interviewing people and whatnot. And then one time, I was interviewing an Obi-Wan cosplayer, right? Mm-hmm. And then after the end of the interview, like he saw me. He was giving me a kind of a look, but like not a dirty look, but a look of trying to like, do I know you from somewhere? And then after I did the interview, like, and I said my name during the interview, and the camera was done recording, he's like, now I remember, I know you. You're that YouTuber, HMK, and I'm like, and I was like, that was like one of the first times anyone's ever recognized me, and then like more, and I keep telling people that's a feeling that I will never get over, because I mean, like, I'm just a dude with a camera, you know, making videos, doing streams, right? So every time people are out in public, when people recognize me, I will never ever get to the point where it's like, hey, you're HMK. I'm like, that's me. I'll never be like that, ever. Mm-hmm. And I will always be like, hey, you're HMK. I'm like, yo, you know who I am? You watch my stuff? And they're like, yeah, I love your stuff. Like, that's crazy. Whoa, how you doing? Right? Because I always constantly say, I've been doing like content creation for years now, but I'll never get used to this life, ever. Because I mean, like, bro, like, people are like, you're a celebrity. I'm like, am I? I'm like, you're famous. I'm like, famous. I'm like, it's pretty. So, and then, like, one funny ass story that, like, goes off a tangent of that is that one time I was in a bookstore and I was checking out the manga section, right? And then I was there with my fiance, a couple of her friends who are also my friends and stuff. And then I was there, and it was my friend Robert. And then we're looking at mangas and stuff, and we're looking at the Parasite manga. It's like, yo, check it out. Like, the Parasite manga here is here in full. Like, my fiance really like it. It's like, oh, that's really cool, right? So then this guy, like, looking at me. I'm like, I'm guessing he's looking at the manga I'm reading, right? So then he goes like, he's like, hey, big fan, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, yo, Parasite's awesome. Yeah, Parasite's a really cool manga. And it's like, nah, man, of you. And I'm like, of me, and then like my friend's like, oh my gosh, Gio, like, what do you mean? Like the fuck? Like, no, I didn't know you recognized me. I thought he was talking about the manga. I was like, oh man, thank you so much, thank you so much. So then he walks off, and then he goes and tells my fiance, it's like, your fiance saw this like he a fan recognized him, and he thought he was talking about the manga. Like what do you mean? I didn't know you. Like, no. So then that's the story of that. So.
Now, what would you say was your weirdest fan experience? Like, did anyone ever ask you to sign their chest or other body parts or other like weird incidents with a fan?
Weird? Okay, so weird. Like, what is weird? I'm weird. Like,
I would say like let's say you're at a con, you're minding your own business, and you're walking to all these places, and you can see somebody following you, something like that.
Okay, all right. So this isn't all right. So I guess this is the best way to fit your question, because I don't think I've ever had like a weird experience to the point, because I mean, like, you know, like I never had someone that's like, yo, sign my legs, or like, oh, sign my forehead, or you know, I've never had any other thing like that or whatnot. So I guess the best way, because it's not a weird experience, but it's like it was one of those experiences where I'm like, oh, that happened. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, and stuff. But I haven't had an experience where I was like straight up weirded out. So the experience that I had is I was at a convention. I was on the show floor. I was walking with my homies or whatnot. So I'm walking, right? And out of nowhere, I feel this big hand just like grab me by the shoulder like this, like big. And the dude just like goes like, whoa. And I'm like grab me from behind, from the shoulder, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa, like, and turns around. I'm like, so I got spun. And then, like, to stop me spinning, he grabs me again to stop me from spinning. And he's like, HMK? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh my gosh. And he like starts hugging me. I'm like, hey. He's like, yo, I'm such a big fan. I'm like, oh man, thank you so much. Yo, you scared me. And then he's like, oh, did I? And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what happens when you grab someone from behind and you play Beyblade with him. I'm like, yo, let it rip. Like, what? And he's like, yeah, man. So, but the guy was cool. So I'm like, yeah, man, big fan. We took pictures and everything like that.
That's wow.
So I guess that's the weird. Like, it wasn't weird, but I guess that's the best way to answer your question. So yeah.
Gotcha. Now my next question is: I noticed on Twitter, Mr. HMK, you are one master debater. Like, it is amazing how people come after you. But yeah,
I love master debating.
Seriously. But like, I noticed that whenever someone has a goal to like debate with you, you always win. Like, how are you so good at debating people online? Did you take classes in college or something, or are you just naturally good at shutting people down?
Oh, like, I like arguing by nature, but I actually did take debating class in both high school and in college, right? And then, you know, at the same time, it's just that, you know, I've been bullied in high school, right? So like, I understand how people work and how people talk in order to try either put you down or straight up debate. I know how to tell the difference between like a civil and a civil debate. Like, if someone coming up to me is debating me, but they're like, I understand how they're civil, even though their words may seem hurtful. Their words only seem hurtful if you allow them to be hurtful. So like, I understand how to differentiate that between those two lines in a debate. When it's like, oh, if a guy were to come up to me and be like, hey man, like, so like Sora this and blah 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 that, and then like the conversation will lead to like, oh, I had this theory that says that, and then he's like, oh, that theory sounds stupid. I'm not gonna get offended by that because he didn't say I was stupid. He just said that theory is stupid. And, you know, like, then that's part of the conversation. You just have to know and differentiate when people are like going out of the way to be malicious, right? And I can detect that, like, you know, easily. So if knowing that and knowing what type of person I'm dealing with, I just know how like, I would say there's very specific archetypes when it comes to people debating on Twitter, and I know who is who and which is which when it comes to, okay, this is what they're probably going to end up doing, this is their strategy, this is what they're going for, this is their intent. And I can figure that out from like like the first first tweet or two, right? I can figure that out, and once I figure that out, then it's over for them because I know the path of debating they're gonna take and whatnot. And if they're gonna be malicious, then like I turn it into a game, and I'm like, oh, no, like I turn it into a game. I quote tweet them, and then it becomes engagement on my half, which helps my Twitter, right? But then when I see that it's like a civil debate and stuff like that, I'm like, okay, then I gauge what they're saying, and then we go from there and whatnot. And I can tell the difference between the two and between the different archetypes of how people want to try and put you down from like debating you and whatnot. Like it's not okay. I can't say it's not that hard because I had education in it. But when people were like, oh this, oh that, it's like it's not as black and white as this or that. Sometimes there's a lot more variables in play, and I am able to understand and identify those variables at a very early on when people decide to open their mouth. So I guess that's my edge.
Okay.
If that answers it.
Gotcha. Because we're gonna have a little mini debate of our own. Goku versus Superman. You wanna? Because I saw your video, my friend, and
that's an old ass video from like 7 years ago, bro.
Because are you in the camp that Goku would win?
I mean, I was. I mean, like, listen, I was. And I read a lot of manga. I watch a lot of anime, but I also read a lot of comics and whatnot and stuff. And there's a lot of things that Goku has going for them and going for him. And there's a lot of things that Superman has going for him and whatnot. But I mean, I understand like Superman is like he was defined to be like near infallible. But there are times where Superman gets his ass whooped. And then Goku gets his ass whooped more often than not.
Oh,
and
yes.
stuff. And then it deals with the whole their extent of their power, how well they can fight, like fighting ability and stuff like that, and then forms and whatnot, and blah blah blah. And then like when it comes to the death battles, because I know that's like a huge keen point with the death battles and stuff, they tried really hard to put into perspective, dodging speed versus flying speed, which I feel they really don't understand at this point. And they try a lot of the time to incorporate too much of the person's personality into the fight, which does matter. But at the same time, it's just like, like if these two were to fight to the death, knowing that, and they should have full disclosure on that facet, then, who would win? And of course, Goku is like Superman at this point in time. Superman is such an old character. He's pretty much at this point in time in comics lifespan, he's pretty much a static character. You're like, Superman's not gonna get this new power out of nowhere. He's not gonna get this new form out of nowhere. Like he's pretty static because that's him. That's Superman. But Goku isn't static. He's constantly gaining new forms and stuff. And right now he's got Ultra Instinct and stuff. And then we thought that was the biggest. We thought that was the shiniest pearl in the sea at this point. But then he got his ass beat. He's getting his ass beat by Granola right now. Yep. And then he had trouble with what's his face? The goat dude. I forgot his name.
Moro.
Yeah, Moro. He was having trouble with Moro and stuff. So like, even though Ultra Instinct was the bee's knees, and he used it to like finally in part defeat Jiren, and we thought Jiren was the end all be all for the longest, and here comes Moro, and then here comes Granola and whatnot. So Dragon Ball and Goku as a character is still a work in progress, right? So now when coming to that perspective, looking back then and looking towards now, it was like, oh, who will win in the fight between Goku and Superman? And I'm like, that's a question I don't think we're gonna get truly answered to the point of all our knowledge until there's a time where Dragon Ball ends, right? Which is probably never. So, or at least to the point where Goku becomes static, where Dragon Ball moves on to a new character, focuses on Pan or Goku Jr. or blah blah blah, right? So, we're probably not gonna get a definitive answer. But I will say this right now. People think this is a meme, but it's actually true when there's a lot of people who are like, Dragon Ball is a lot of people's first and a lot of times only manga anime and stuff. True. Like, oh, but could they whip Goku? And I'm like, there's a people within anime and manga that can actually dismantle Goku.
Oh yes.
And then one person, one entity that a lot of people are like, no, and I'm like, every time where I hear is like, oh, who win a fight, Goku or blank, and I say it's blank by miles, they're like, no, I'm like, that's how I know you don't read the anime or manga from blank. And the person that can dismantle Goku, and then people are like, it's funny, every time this conversation comes up, they think it's a meme, but it's actually true. Sailor Moon would absolutely demolish Goku. And a lot of people don't understand that. And they're like, Sailor Moon, you know, like the girly magical girl. I'm like, yes. Do you know how busted Sailor Moon is?
Pretty
She's
busted.
reality. She's reality busting, bro. Sailor Moon literally literally vaporizes galaxies. Like, people don't understand how powerful Sailor Moon is. And people are like, she can't whip Goku. I'm like, yeah, she can. Like, brother. People are like, can she beat Goku? I'm like, yeah, she can. And then they're like, no, she can't. I'm like,
Read the manga.
read the manga. Read the manga.
When she says she will punish you, she is not holding back for sure. But I bring up Goku because I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on Dragon Ball superhero so far?
I mean, it looks cool. I'm just
The name.
No, the name is like, whatever, man. Dragon Ball superhero, or we can just shorten it to Dragon Ball superhero, or whatever. But like Dragon Ball superhero. I mean, the premise looks cool. The animation doesn't look bad and stuff. A lot of people are like, they're like hanky panky in the animation. I'm glad that Piccolo and Pan are getting some screen time. However, the one thing that I'm like, man, I'm like, when I saw the trailer, I'm like, man, the Red Ribbon Army again, bro, like again, like come on,
Just die already.
God. And then like from what we gather, or from what I gather, like it looks like the Red Ribbon Army are gonna make like evil Goku Vegeta clones and shit, like, you know. Hey, Broly's in the movie.
Exactly. That's what I'm hyped about, bro. I was iffy at first, but then when I saw Broly, I was like, let's fucking go, yes. That is my favorite. Ooh, I just love that. Love that movie to death. But my next question is going back to the U side of things. What was, because a lot of Kingdom Hearts streamers and content creators, they're big fans and stuff, yes. But you, my friend, had the pleasure of meeting the great daddy himself, Papa Nomura, in person twice. Correct? Tell us, first of all, I'm so jealous. And second off, what was that like, bro? What kind of aura does he have around him? Like, getting to meet the Nomura, like, what was that like? Please shed some light on that for us.
So Tetsuya Nomura is like actually like, he's one of my favorite video game creators like all time, and that is also compounded with like what I know of Nomura is that he's a very private person. He, you know, and then he also wishes that people respect his privacy, and I know that. And then knowing all of that, and then knowing how big gargantuan expectations were for Kingdom Hearts 3 at the time and whatnot, when I first met him, it was just very like his aura, his atmosphere was just very, very I would say heavy. It was like the gravity. It was like the gravity of the circumference of him, like the gravity around that area, was just very heavy. Considering that, you know, all the stuff I knew about him, and of course, like, you know, all of the hype considering Nomura as a creator when it comes to a director, a writer, a designer, or whatnot. So it was just it was super potent for me to meet him for the first time, which was at D23 2017. And I happened to meet him by chance, thanks to being invited to D23 by my my channel MCM at the time, which was a Polaris, who was owned by Disney. And then my contact Lauren was telling me, hey, do you want to go D23? I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll be down, because like we met up E3. And then D23 was happening like a month or two, like I think it was a month or two, like 2 months or whatever, like a couple of weeks was happening after that. And I'm like, yo, I would love to go to D23, but I have to know ASAP that you can get me to go because I mean, like, the show is happening like soon, and I have to like get the flight, I have to get the hotel, and all that stuff, and blah blah blah. And then she was like, "Okay, I'll let you know." And then she's like, "Okay, we got you in D23." I'm like, "Cool, awesome." So I go to D23, and then I went with my fiance, Sky was there too, and then our friend Michael was there too. And we all rolled up to D23, and then when it was time for her to give me my badge, and I still have that badge. Is the badge over there in view? Like, yeah, it's over. Hold on.
We get to see
It's
the
that
badge.
one.
Nice.
Yeah, the blue one hanging there, or their D23 Expo. Now, when she gave me that badge is like really, really special because it's known as a sorcerer badge because they tier the badges there based on Disney characters or or what they are or whatever. The sorcerer badge, that badge, right? Let me tell you, that badge is a big deal. And when I saw, and like I knew that badge was a big deal from like when they were given to me. I'm like, this is mine. It's like, yeah, and this is for your fiance too. I'm like, this is so we got two. So to put into perspective for everyone in the chat, that badge is literally one tier below the badge they give to the actual actors and celebrities.
Wow.
D23. So that's like that I'm like, so that literally gave me access to everything, like to everything. So then, I will never forget. One time we wanted to go see a panel, and then there was like this big line to go around because the panel rooms are huge. The panel room to go inside, you have to go down this walk area and then come around and go enter, right? But the exit was literally like right next to the way when you just go into the panel area. Right, literally like if you're going towards the panel, the exit is the first door leading into the thing. But then that's how people exit. So they go in and then they exit. Like, they have this whole like really cool system. So then I'm walking up and then there's a security guard there, and I was like, "Oh, we want to go see the panel." And it's like, "Oh, you two want to go see the panel? You have to go that way, certain madam, right?" But then I was like, I got my badge. I'm like. And then he sees the badge. He's like, "Oh, right this way, right this way." So we go in through the back to get to the front row seats through the exit. And I'm like, this badge is busted. So we went all over this area. We got like fast pass in line. We went to these restricted areas. We played a lot of games, take a lot of pictures. It was super, super fun. And then Lauren calls me and says, "Hey, listen, we need you in the green room for the video game panel," which we knew that Kingdom Hearts was going to be there and whatnot. And then you could go there and do your thing and just hang out with us, snacks, stuff like that. So the green room is like, if you guys don't know what the green room is, literally the room where all the people who are are set to work or be on the show or anything like that, they hang out there. That's literally right next to the big stage or whatever. So we go to the green room. And there were snacks and everything. There were like Kit Kat bars, Reese's, nachos, guacamole, little muffins, bagels, and stuff like that. Like, there was a lot of food there. It was crazy. But then we got there early because I was just really excited. And then Laura pulls me aside, and then she was like, "Hey, listen, if you see anyone important, come into the green room, try not to freak out." And then I'm like, in my head, I'm like, okay, this is an American event at D23. In my head, I'm like, there's no way Nomura's going to be here. She's probably thinking about Shinji Hashimoto, right? Or Taiyo Sui. And I met them both already. So I'm like, whatever. And then at the time, that's also when I had a Nintendo contact. And my Nintendo contact told me the same thing. It was like, "Oh, if you see Reggie, freak out." And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay, yeah. So I was given the spiel already from my contact. I'm like, come on, I've already been given this conversation in a different way or whatnot. And by the way, Reggie's huge. So I'm like, I take that to heart. So I'm thinking Hashimoto's gonna be. And then I'm doing my whole thing, and then she gives me the access to the Polaris account, and then I tweet as them to hype up the show and whatnot. That was like me doing my thing there. We go back to the green room because we noticed there was a lot of suits, like just rolling up into the green room, right? And then it was packed at the point we got back there, and then like there's everyone's there. Jacksepticeye was there, Markiplier was there, a bunch of people from Polaris was there. I ran into Cody again. Lauren was doing her own thing, so I saw that Shinji Hashimoto was there too. In the corner of my eye, all the way in the back, talking with a bunch of other executives, having some snacks or whatever. And I'm talking with Corey, who was another one of my Polaris handlers, and as I'm talking to him, from the corner of my eye, like this, I look, and there it is, Tetsuya fucking Nomura, right? And he had like a crew around him, right? And I'm like, and then Markiplier walks over, and I already knew Mark. Like I don't know Mark personally, but we know of each other. Like we met each other multiple times, so he recognized like, hey, and I'm like, hey, Mark, and then like we converse every time we meet each other. Like I'm a fan of Mark. I was never starstruck by Markiplier. It's like to the point I'm like, hey, Mark, we have a conversation. By the way, super nice dude, super genuine. So we're having a conversation, and like he walks over and I see Nomura, and then he sees that he can notice my face is flushed. He's like, yo, you okay? Are you alright? I'm like, dude. I'm like this. And he looks around and he doesn't play Kingdom Hearts, right? So he looks and he says, who's that? And then I'm like, that's Tetsuya Nomura, the guy who's like in charge of Kingdom Hearts. And he's like, oh wow, really? You're gonna go say hi? And I'm like, bro, I don't know, like should I? And then he's like, I don't see no reason why not. And Corey comes back, and Corey's like, hey man, are you alright? And I'm like, Corey, like, Moore's right there. And he's like, oh yeah, he's here. And I'm like, and then my fiance comes back, and is like, and she's like, babe, are you okay? Like everyone could see that I'm like
shaking.
Yeah. And then she's like, babe, you're okay? And then I'm like, and then she knows who Nomura is. She looks, and then she's like, is that Nomura? And then so everyone's like, so Mark, Corey, and my fiance was like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Like, and then I remember what Lauren said, like, don't freak out. I'm holding it in, right? And then as all was all happening, a voice in the back of my head was all like, you will never get a chance like this ever again, right? And I'm like, I gotta go for it, right? So I walked as politely and not as like weirdly as possible. So I walk towards him, and as soon as I got into his vicinity, I feel the dome just like, durr, and I'm like, oh god, right? I'm like, it was like he casted gravity, and then as I was approaching him, he just looks at me, and I'm like, oh god, he sees me, right? So then I approach him, and then as he sees me, all his the entourage, because like apparently he rolls around with an entourage all the time. His entourage, they all see me and they all look at me too. So I have like 6 pairs of eyes, just like, right? And I'm like, the first thing I do is I bow, and I'm like, oh, Mr. Tetsuya Nomura, I am a huge, and I'm like, bro, I know he's not answering. I was gambling in my head, like, I know he's not understanding me. I know this. I'm just hoping one of his crew members right there is a translator. And I'm just like, I'm a huge fan of your work. Your work has changed my life. I love Kingdom Hearts. I love what you do with Sora. I cannot wait for Kingdom Hearts 3 and whatnot. And I was just, it would be all right if I can get a picture. Right. So then when I said that, one of the ladies there was a translator. So she picked up on it, and then she's like, oh, all right. Goes to Tetsuya Nomura, says what I said in Japanese. Tetsuya Nomura says something to her, says something to her in Japanese, says something to me in Japanese, and says something to her to Japanese again. She looks to me. It's like, oh, Tetsuya Nomura, Nomura-san is very flattered by your kind words. He would love to take a photo with you on the condition that you never. And I knew this was a thing. Yeah. I knew it was coming. So I'm like, that is no problem at all, right? So he's like, you can take a picture with him on the condition that you do not share this photo anywhere else at all, right? And like I have the photo.
Can we see?
No, you cannot.
Darn it.
And I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Yes, of course. So I shimmy him. I position myself to take a picture of my like I was in the zone. So my fiance's like, yo, you want me to take a picture with you? I'm like, bro, if I were to tempt fate by putting the phone anywhere else, I feel I could just like I feel I could just fall apart, right? So then I take a picture in the morning, both of us smiling, and I'm like, I bow, and I'm like, oh, thank you, arigato, right? And then he bows a little bit too, and then does this, and I'm like, ah! I didn't say, in my head, I was like, ah! but I didn't say, like, obviously, like, bro, how weird would I be?
Yeah.
Like, so he goes like this, and I'm like, and then I shake his hand, like, in like full gratitude. I shake his hand. I'll bow my way.
That,
Right?
bro, that is
So
like,
then-
wow.
And then leading off of that, as I'm walking away, Jacksepticeye is like, Jacksepticeye also knew about me. We bowled a lot in Boston. Jacksepticeye is like, hey man, how you doing? I'm like, yo, Jack, don't talk to me right now, man. Like, yo, my legs are jelly, right? Like, I was ready to collapse, but I didn't. I got a snack, increased my blood sugar a little bit, had a soda. It's fine. So that was meeting number 1, right? Meeting number 2 was at the premiere, and that was actually, it was like the meet. Yeah, okay. So the second meeting was at the premiere, and then I have a funny ass story about that meeting, about the premiere, where I was playing Kingdom Hearts 3 at the premiere, and he was there, but we didn't know he was there, and he just rolled up, full decked out in his like gear, like in his Kingdom Hearts gear, his Kingdom Hearts drip, right? And he had a Stark Industries shirt, so all people were like, "Oh, Marvel confirmed it." So I'm playing the game, right? And then one of my Square Enix contacts. Like I was, and when you were playing the game at the premiere, they had this like big ass headphones. So I was like I was jacked in. I could not notice anything happening, like, because I was like boom, noise cancel, right? So she taps me, right? She taps me. I'm like, and I take my headphones on. I'm like, what, did I do something wrong? Did I like? It's like, oh no. Like, look who's watching you. I'm like, huh? Who? Right? And it was Nomura and Yasoi, and they were waving at me like. It's amazing. I'm like, it's so good. So I get up a little bit, and I shake hands with him, and then I bow again. And then I also got to talk with Justin Scarpone and Tayasui a little bit more, and Sunil, and that was really cool. And then that was the event where I asked Justin Scarpone about the whole Sword for Smash thing. And then that's when I got that information. I got the answer from him and stuff. And then that's where I ran into Tetsuya Nomura again, and that was really fun.
That is, congratulations, man. That's amazing.
And then the story that spun off of that, which was hilarious, is because that was actually my second time meeting Justin Scarpone, who, if you guys don't know at the time, was the Disney vice president of Disney Japan. The first time I met him was at a previous event to that, called the Kingdom Hearts Union Cross Dandelion Meetup, which was an event they had for Union Cross, right? And it was really cool. Square Enix was super nice about it. It happened at Burbank. They gave me a Smelly Octopus the VIP treatment. It was so nice. They literally gave us hotel rooms. We were literally staying at the hotel where all the Square executives were staying at, and it was so nice, right? Oh, the breakfast was amazing. Anyways, that was the first time I met Justin Scarpone. And it's funny because when I ran into him, we were both sitting in the VIP booth, and then it's like, oh, and like I saw him, and he was like really well dressed suit. I'm like, oh, are you a Disney executive? It's like, yes, Justin. I was like, nice to meet. I was like, yes, Justin, nice to meet you. He's like, oh, nice to meet you, Mr. Scarpone. And it's like, my name is like, I know who you are, and I'm like, what? And then it's like, yeah, we watch your stuff all the time, and I'm like, and that's where it got drilled into my head, where I'm like, the mouse is always watching, right? Like, the mouse is always watching.
Yes.
So I'm like, and then I'm like, oh, and then at the time I gave him my business card. It's like, oh, if you ever need me for anything, here's my business card and stuff. Like, oh wow, this is so cool. It's like I'm getting a business card from a celebrity. I'm like, no, not really. I'm not. No. So then we met up again at D20, and not D23. We met up again at the Kingdom Hearts 3 premiere, and then that happened. And then we met up again the same year, a couple months afterwards, at the Kingdom Hearts Orchestra that happened before E3. So, like, this was literally, I met him 3 times within the span of, like, 2 months, right? So then, at the orchestra, we had a conversation because he was there with Hashimoto, right? And like, when we went to the premiere, like, it was me, Dean. It was me, Sky. I'm not remembering. Anyways. It was a bunch of us, and then a bunch of fans were there, and they're like meeting greet. Like, it was kind of a meet and greet that we were doing there. So a bunch of fans were meeting up with us, greeting us, and whatnot. And then in the chaos, while we were going into the orchestra, Justice Scarpone flags me down. It's like, hey, HMK. And I'm like, oh, Justin. And he was there with Shinji Hashimoto. I'm like, oh, Hashimoto-san is here too,
Nice.
right? So then we were like, oh, like, how you doing? And Hashimoto is like, oh, in Japanese, because like, this is like the fifth time I met him, right? In English, he was like, oh, nice to meet you again. And I'm like, oh, nice to meet you again, Shinji, right? So then I was having a conversation with Justin, and I'm like, oh, he was like, how'd you like Kingdom Hearts 3? I'm like, oh man, I love it. It was such a great time playing at the premiere and stuff. And he's like, yeah, funny enough, I was watching you play the game at the premiere with Nomura-san, and then I'm like, so you were there with him? And he's like, yeah, we have a conversation just literally watching you. And I'm like, was that the time where like Samantha was tapping me and telling me he was watching? It's like, no, that was actually earlier. We were just walking around and we recognized you, but you couldn't hear us because of the headphones and stuff. We were literally right behind you. I'm like, you guys were right behind me? And they're like, yeah, like it was me and them were right behind you. We were just talking about, and we were literally talking about you. And I'm like, what? And then it's like, yeah. So I was, Justin was saying, it's like, I was telling to Nomura-san, it's like, oh yeah, this is Gio. Like, this is Gio. And like, he's a content creator and stuff. And he's a really big fan of Kingdom Hearts, really big, really awesome content creator about Kingdom Hearts. We just was like, oh, we actually met at the Dandelion meeting. Do you want to meet Gio? He said, do you want to meet Gio to Nomura? And then Nomura said to him, and this is what Justin told me. Nomura said to him, it's like, oh no, we met at the D23. We're already good friends now. And then I'm like, what? And then it's like, yeah, that's what Nomura said. And then I'm like, so why did you tap me? He's like, oh, you look like you were having a good time with the game. You didn't want to bother me. I'm like, why didn't you know, Justin? Why? And then it's like, oh, you didn't want to bother me.
Bruh.
That's crazy.
It was. So like I know you're pressed for time right now, but I have one more question that might need like a longer explanation, but is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, regarding Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Hearts 3, how the hell can I defeat Yozora, bro? I'm still stuck on him. What is your advice for me on how? Because I want that shirt, okay? I want to buy that shirt. Which you can find at HMK you can find that at hmk.com. But how can I defeat Yozora, buddy? How?
Yes, I survived Yozora. So, like, the biggest thing, because a lot of people ask me that, like, even when I went to a convention, like, Andy asked me that. I'm pretty sure I saw Andy earlier in this chat, but Andy asked me that. Is like, yo, how do you beat Yozora? And I'm like, okay, so like the thing with Yozora is that like just like any other Kingdom Hearts boss, but more so than any other Kingdom Hearts boss, is that Yozora requires a lot, and I mean a lot of patience. Right? You can't just go willy-nilly when it comes to, trying to strike him and trying to take him down and whatnot and stuff. A lot of people like, because Kingdom Hearts 3 and Remind has a lot more Kingdom Hearts players than it does any other Kingdom Hearts game, right? So there's a lot more fresh eyes, a lot more fresh people playing a game and don't really understand the concept of these drastically hard super bosses, right? Which was a thing in the Final Mix games, Kingdom Hearts 1 Final Mix, 2 Final Mix, Birth by Sleep Final Mix, and Remind is basically the Final Mix of Kingdom Hearts 2. So, with that being said, with Yozora, you just have to be really patient, because, like, I've played against Yozora a lot of times, like, almost more than 100 times, and he has very big tells in his first phase, right before he does his desperation move. Right, so you like there are times and there are people that are not that great at Kingdom Hearts that are able to not they don't take damage during the first phase of the first phase of Yozora's boss fight, because he has a lot of tells, because they're very patient. You just have to know when to block, when to strike, and whatnot. But then once you get to the desperation move, I don't care what anybody says. I really don't. Throw all of your inhibitors. It's like, oh, I'm gonna earn it this way, out the window, because if you have an ability, if the game gives you an ability, use it. So as soon as he goes into his DM, if you need to, spam aerial. Have elixirs on you, spam aerial.
Yes.
Right? Even outside, and also another cool tip about his DM, once he gets to the end of his DM, where he does like the giant fireball and stuff, just go in it. Let it like soak up. Even if you're at 1 HP, it's never gonna kill you. that move will never kill you no matter how much HP you have.
Good to know.
So in order to like end his DM early and then just to reset, go into the fireball, let him do his little cinematic elixir, aerial. But at the same time, aerial's not enough in order to kill him because you can only get so many elixirs, right? So make sure that you have either ultimate form or a double form in your pocket so that you'll have basically like the barrier guard. Because at one point during his second phase, he's going to start doing unblockable moves. But he will have a time where he slips up, where he does the whole, he throws the blade behind you and you have to guard it. Make sure you have either ultimate form or double form there ready so you have your bubble guard. And then you'll be able to block it, no problem, and then just go for him and whatnot. And then, strike it up, DM, all that good jazz. But then a lot of other things to, tips and stuff. When he does his cage attack, after the first attempt to trap you in it, block, and then don't let the second one hit you. He'll be in it, and then you can break that with thunder and stuff. So that's a way to end that move quickly. And then a lot of people like to, when he does that move where he like steals your items.
Yes.
As soon he's gonna start floating, and he's gonna teleport in front of you. Use shot of luck to slow down time. As soon as you see the flash of light from his gun at his biggest, just air step to him, and then you can break through it. He'll take a little bit of HP from you, but he won't take an item. Okay. You can break through it and then just start another combo. And I guess that's the best way I can give you, advice on that.
All right, so now we're going to get into the final phase of the interview. We're going to get into the fan favorite section called Top 10 Questions. So let me ask you this, buddy. Are you familiar with Inside the Actor's Studio?
Like the Disney thing?
No, Inside the Actor's Studio. No? Okay. Basically, at the end of every show, they ask the guests 10 questions. 10 very short questions. And I'm gonna ask you all of them right now. So are you ready?
Alright, yeah, I'm ready.
Alright, so the first question is, what is your favorite word?
What the heck? I guess yo's a word. That's my favorite word.
What is your least favorite word? Undecided?
No, I'm...
Terra.
No.
What is HMK's least favorite word?
Like, how do you have favorites? What? How do you tier words? I guess sham.
Sham, okay, that's fine. And what makes you happy?
Like being around like good, loud energy, positive energy. Being around people that are happy, making my friends happy.
What makes you upset?
Indecisive people that ask you questions but don't take your answer to mind. Like you're indecisive and you ask me a question and I give you the answer and you disregard my answer. Why ask me a question? So, yeah.
What sound or noise do you love?
The sound of meat frying.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Well, I'm even thinking about this. Scratching across a chalkboard, man. No.
All right, HMK, what is your favorite curse word?
I mean, I say fuck a lot, but I think my favorite curse word is because I use this curse word as not only like the curse word, but I use it as a sound effect. I get bitch, like when someone gets hit, bitch, like that's my favorite curse word.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Attempt? Oh. an agent.
Okay.
An agent, like a talent agent, like that.
What profession would you not like to attempt?
Woo! Oh yeah, they get paid shitloads of money, but no, those people that gotta change the light bulb on those really tall towers. That's supposed. No, I'm good.
Never.
You know, it's funny. You know the people who work like that, they make like 48 grand for one light bulb exchange.
Wow.
So they gotta do one job and they're good for like a couple of months.
Dang, but nah, I rather live.
I'm good. Never. Nope. I'm good.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Good thing you believed, I guess.
Ladies and gentlemen, one big round of applause for our guest HMK once again. Thank you so much, buddy, for coming here. I've been a lifelong fan of you, so thank you once again for coming on here. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
No problem, man. No problem, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Anytime. But before we go, you want to say any closing words for the audience?
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on to the show, and be sure to check out more episodes of Motown Downtown. And I hope you had a great time. And if you need to find me, just type those words HMK into Google, and you will know where to find me.
Give this man a follow. So we're gonna go raid our friend Ty Pool of Dreams, another member of the Fifth Dimension. So, yeah, give her some love, give her a follow, give her a sub, tell her Mo and HMK sent ya. And yes, I will be back tomorrow for some Just Dance, which I hope someday you and I can play together, buddy. You will kill me in Smash Bros, but I will wipe your ass on the floor on some Just Dance. Best believe that.
I believe it. I believe it.
The Tide of Dreams. There we go. Boom. So yes, everyone, the raid message is going to be Gio, what should the raid message be?
Swords and Smash.
Sword for Smash, exactly. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye bye.